Islamic Republic of Iran was actually originally Persia, or Persian Empire. Later on it became Iran, and finally in 1979 it became Islamic Republic of Iran. And before that, the country was ran by a king, or Shah Pahlavi, and the country was considered the mini America in the Middle East. Also, Shah of Iran was considered the best ally of America in the Middle East. And the law of the country, the constitution of the country, was a mirror image of the American Constitution minus the Second Amendment. In 1979, there was a revolution. In the middle of it, Ayatollah Khomeini came along, hijacked the revolution, and invaded the country, took power, and turned the country into Islamic Republic of Iran. The name explains itself, but the first thing he did was he got rid of the constitution that we had and replaced it with the constitution we have now. And if you look at the constitution of Iran, at the very top, it says the constitution of this country is adopted from Sharia. What is Sharia? Quran, which is word of Allah, Sunnah, which is life of Muhammad, the Prophet, and Hadith, which is a collection of the stories told by those who lived around Muhammad and witnessed his reaction and action towards situations, people, and circumstances. So a combination of that makes Sharia, and Sharia makes the constitution of the country I was born in, because I was born after the revolution. On top of that, on top of being born in an Islamic country, I was also born in a family where my father was a sheikh, which is a step higher than imam. A sheikh is the person who can make rulings in Islamic judgments. And my mother was a Quran teacher. She taught Quran. So I pretty much was raised fully under Islam and Sharia. By the time I reached age 7, as I was getting ready and excited for school, I was introduced to my uniform, which was a loose, long pants, a very loose and long overcoat matching the pants, and a hijab in color white. So I asked my mother, "Mom, I thought I don't have to wear the hijab until I'm 9 years old. Well, I'm 7 now." She said, "Well, by age 9, it will be mandatory for you to wear the hijab. So starting now, you start practicing it until you master it. So you don't have to wear it on the streets, but you have to wear it at a school." I took her word for it. And the first day of school came, my father took me to school. As we were walking, I noticed boys are going to school wearing pretty much different color and shapes of t-shirt. So I looked at my father and said, "Dad, how come I'm wearing the hijab and they're not?" My answer was a punch in the face. I turned around and I said, "Why would you punch me?" He looked at me and said, "You will never question Allah." That was my very first lesson. Don't ever question Allah. Okay. Fast forward until I was 9 years old. I got an invitation card at a school, and I was told to take it to my parents. I did. And it was an invitation to an event, a ceremony called Requirement Day. Okay, what do? We need to prepare you. Okay, what am I doing? First thing you got to do is master your prayer. In Arabic, for those of you who may not know, the language of Iran is Farsi. Okay, technically it's Parsi coming from people of Pars, but when Iran was invaded by Islam, and because the character P doesn't exist in the alphabet of Arabic, they changed it to Farsi so they could pronounce it. But okay, the language of the country technically and legally is Farsi, but I had to learn my prayer in Arabic. And that was my very first hint that I am smarter than Allah because I'm bilingual and he's not. Then they told me I have to master the call to prayer. Okay, that's done. Next, we have to get you ready. What you need to wear is very special. Yay, it's normally exciting for a 9-year-old girl to get a special dress to wear. They handed me a burqa. Do you know what's a burqa? Perfect. It was color white. You're probably familiar with color black, but mine was white because we are, celebrating. It's a good day. Put me in a burqa. We got ready and we went to the event. I walked in, and it's a room filled with 9-year-old girls. Some I knew because they were from my school. Some I didn't know. And later on, by the way, I was told that that event took place in every single city of the country at the same time, the same day, for every single 9-year-old girl in the country. They had us sit down, had the imam come on the stage and start citing Quran, talking about Allah, talking about Muhammad, and all the good stuff that goes with it. Then he went on and said, all of you in this room, starting right now, under Sharia, you are officially a full adult woman. I won't try to tell you how it felt because I still can't separate the feelings I was feeling, but my top feeling, the strongest one, was anger. Because I went from a little girl who was worried about homework, school friends, and dolls and play, to all of a sudden being an adult woman. He went on by saying, you are responsible for your actions. You will face consequences. You will follow Muhammad. You will die, and if needed, kill in the name of Allah. And if your male guardian decides it's time for you to get married, you will do so. Then they told us to stand up and repeat after the imam. He started saying the shahada, and just in case if you don't know what is the shahada, shahada is the testimony you give in Arabic to convert fully to Islam. I have been called an ex-Muslim by Islamic organizations, by friends, by allies, by media everywhere, an ex-Muslim. Because I was born and raised in Islamic Republic of Iran, automatically that made me a Muslim. But technically, even under Islam, I'm not ex-Muslim. Because that day I was so pissed off, I didn't repeat after him. So I technically didn't say the Shahada, so I never converted to Islam, so I'm not an ex-Muslim. But I continued to pretend. Because if I would say, hey, I didn't say the Shahada, I'm not going to say the Shahada, I would get myself killed. So that day was done, went home, and because now officially, under the law of the country being Sharia, I was an adult woman, I started getting myself in trouble. I started facing consequences. By the time I reached age 14, I managed to get myself arrested over 12 times, earned myself over 100 lashes. I was raped, I don't know how many times, and I basically turned into a big criminal. Let me share some of my crimes with you. I was arrested because I was wearing nail polish. Why is that a crime? Because if you do the prayer under Islam, you have to do the prayer wash-up. If you're doing the prayer wash-up, you can't have nail polish on. You can't have anything on, no makeup, no nail polish, no tattoos. Therefore, if I had nail polish on, that means I was not doing my prayer. That's a crime. I managed to get arrested for attending a party where boys and girls were in the same room. And with that, all of us in that room at that party got 35 lashes. The host got 75 lashes because he was the one who promoted. One time, my hair was showing from back of my hijab accidentally. Well, that wasn't the proper hijab. Another time, I got arrested because I was getting in a taxi. The back seat was full, so I took the front seat. Passengers from back seat started getting off, and I sat in the front. And at some point, we got pulled over by morality police. Now, in the Islamic Republic of Iran, every time you're stopped as you walk, or you're pulled over in a car by morality police, there's a male and female. The first question is, what's your relationship? So automatically, that was a question that was asked of us. I said, nothing, I'm just a passenger. He said, oh no, we have a relationship. Arrested, detention center, to the court in the morning. I went to the court, and I said, I don't know this guy, and I'm just a passenger. The judge said, do you have anyone to confirm your story? Well, no, Your Honor, I was alone in the car with him. So, well, based on Sharia, you being a woman, your testimony counts as half of his, so I have no choice but to take his word over yours. You are sentenced to 75 lashes. I managed to purchase 50 of them, and I ended up serving 25 of them. Another time, I was walking home from school with a friend of mine who was also my classmate. We decided to whisper this song that we liked. We got carried away, and we started singing it louder, and our voice was heard. And that's a crime. As a woman, your voice should never be heard publicly. So we got arrested, both of us. Same scenario, handcuffs, detention center, wait for the court. Overnight, somehow, the guards figured out or find out that my friend is not a Muslim. Rather, she was a Baha'i. I was 11, so was she. That night, all night, I was forced to watch my friend be sodomized for being a filthy non-Muslim. I don't know what happened to her because I was sent to Sharia court, Islamic court. She was, I don't know, sent to her. But I'm sure you get the picture of what a criminal I was. I was close to reaching age 14. My father, being a sheikh, being a devout Muslim, figured I'm just bringing too much shame to the family. So it's time for me to be somebody else's problem. So one day he told me, you're going to marry that guy. I tried to cry my way out of it, begged him, tried to fight my way out of it. Didn't work. So I became his wife. He paid $50, 50 American dollars, and if enough opium for personal usage of a month for my father, and in return he got me. The man who bought me had me for a year and a couple of months. During that time, he was very good at looking at me as a punching bag. So, every day, if he wasn't beating me, he was raping me. If he wasn't raping me, he was beating me. I went back to my father, and I begged him, and I tried to convince him to get me a divorce because under Sharia, he still had more power as a male guardian over me than the husband. He told me, I know you. You're not a type to obey anyone, so he has every right to beat you. He sent me back. A while later, one day when he was done beating me, he left. He did that a lot. He would beat me and then just leave. I figured, you know what? If I walk into a courtroom, there is possibly a judge in that court that has a little bit, just a little bit of humanity left, a bit of a soul there, that will look at me and try to do something for me. So I got myself together, went into a court, walked into the first available courtroom. I walked in there with a dislocated shoulder, bloody lip, and a bruised face on my eyes. I was 15 years old at this point. I walked in there and I said, "Your Honor, you have got to save me. This man is going to kill me." He looked up very calmly with a smile, looked me in the eye, and said, "Well, young lady, maybe you should start obeying your husband so he doesn't have to beat you. Now go home and make him happy." That was the moment when I realized, yes, I'm a hopeless, helpless teenager in my own country. Nobody cares.
Can't hear you.
My father's not going to protect me. The husband is the problem. Law is not on my side. Apparently the justice I deserve is go home and make him happy. So here are my choices. Stay. No, I will be killed at some point. Or try and find a way out for a possibility of surviving. Rest in peace, I had a grandmother who was against everything that was going on. Not just with me, but the country. She was raised during the Shah time, so she knew there's a better life, there's a better possibility. There was a time where there was equality, or at least there were some rights for women. So, she managed to hire a smuggler to get me out of the country, smuggle me to Turkey, where I became a legal immigrant, went under United Nations, proved my case and my identity. Got approval. Then they told me to pick a country, 3 countries that I would like as my final destination. My top pick was America, and I will tell you later why. And I waited, went through proper channels again until I was finally approved to come to America. I came to America back in 2002 as a legal immigrant. And it is my honor to say, officially starting 2010, I am a legal American citizen. Now, I was lucky, I was blessed, and God had a plan for me, so I survived. But to this day, there are so many little Anni Cyruses behind. And every day, it just adds to the number. Based on Registered Office of Islamic Republic of Iran, between 2013 and 2017, there has been over 178,000 registered brides under age of 15, and over 941,000 registered brides between 15 and 18. That makes it close to more than 1 million child bride in Islamic Republic of Iran. And again, this is the number they put out, not me. I promise you, numbers way higher, but this is what they felt comfortable releasing. And this is the country. These are the numbers between 2013 and 2017. And somewhere in between, we made a deal with them and we handed $150 billion over to them. I guess that was the reward for them to produce so many child brides. More power to them. Now I would understand if every single person in this room would say, "I'm sorry for what happened to you. It should never happen to anyone." And I agree. But you just had a crazy father and a psycho husband that has nothing to do with Islam. You have the right to think that. But that's why I'm here. To tell you that everything that ever happened to me as a child had everything to do with Islam. So if you would please bear with me, I'm going to read some stuff to you, and I will give you the source. If you'd like to take notes, please do, and confirm so you know I am not making them up. I am not mistranslating them. And you can learn for yourself. Now, a quick question. How many of you in this room have read the Quran, or just part of Quran, or even a page of Quran? Okay. If you open the Quran, chapter 4 is called The Woman. So Allah sent down a chapter to just explain what is a woman under Islam and how you treat a woman under Islam. Chapter 4 contains 176 verses. Let's just start with verse 3. So we're going to go chapter 4, verse 3. It says, if you fear that you will not deal fairly with orphan girls, you may marry whichever other woman seem good to you. 2, 3, or 4. But if you fear that you cannot do just to them, then marry only one or your 6 slaves. That is more likely to make you avoid bias. There are 2 points to be made on this verse. Would you all agree that having up to 4 wives is approved? Because it says 2, 3, or 4. And by the way, the translation I'm reading to you is one of the possibly most sugar-coated English versions of it. That's the one I'm reading to you. But even with that, it says 2, 3, or 4. Now the second point here, within the sugar-coated one, it says, if you fear you cannot do justly or fairly with the orphan girl. I'm almost positive you all noticed the accent, so English is not my first language, but I'm almost sure. The meaning of orphan girl is an underage girl who has lost her parents. Am I correct? So there you have it. We are talking about an underage girl. Now, what does that mean you can do 30? I won't analyze it, I won't explain it because apparently I'm too hateful. I will let Aisha analyze that for you. Now, who knows who's Aisha here? Okay, let's explain. Who is Aisha? Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, had 11 wives at the same time. His favorite wife was named Aisha. Aisha was 6 years old when he married her, and she was 9 years old when he consummated the marriage. Now again, please do not take my word for it. Go look at Sahih al-Bukhari. It is a hadith book approved by every single Islamic scholar and imam out there. Sahih al-Bukhari is used at schools, Islamic schools and mosques and preachings and all that to teach Islam. So Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 7, book 62, following hadith are number 62, 64, 65, 67, and 88. These are the hadith narrated by Aisha herself, telling the story of when she was 6 years old, playing in the backyard with her friend, and Muhammad came and asked her father to marry her. And the rest of the hadith are narrated by her, explaining how it went, how she felt, how the wedding went on, and all that stuff. So I'm not making Aisha up. Aisha herself put the story in Sahih al-Bukhari, the hadith book of Islam. Now establish who Aisha is. Yursa, Aisha's nephew, goes to Aisha and says, Aisha, what does Allah mean on chapter 4, verse 3? And this is Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 7, book 62, hadith number 2. Aisha comes back and says, oh my nephew, this verse, verse 3, chapter 4, was revealed in connections with an orphan girl under the guardianship of her guardian, who is attracted to her by her wealth or her beauty, and intends to marry her. And intends to marry her with less marriage money than what other women of her standard deserve. So, the guardian have been forbidden to marry her unless he will pay the equal marriage money for her. Did you all follow me here? So, number one, it is all right to be attracted to an orphan girl under your guardianship. Number two, it is all right to intend to marry her. Number three, it is not okay to marry her if you're not going to pay equal money for her. But if you do, then it's okay. Not my words, Allah's words, and Muhammad's wife's word. Now, a lot of people say Islamic countries are not Islamic. They're a bunch of radicals who hijacked Islam and made some extreme rulings out of it. So, let's go to the Civil Code of Islamic Republic of Iran, Book 7, Chapter 2. Article 1041 says, marriage before the age of majority is prohibited. Note 1. Marriage before puberty, by the permission of the guardian and on condition of taking into consideration the ward's interest, is proper. Now, what is the age of majority? Civil Code of Islamic Republic of Iran, Book 10, Chapter 1, Article 1210 says, on Note 1, it says, the age of majority for boys is 15 and for girls is 9. And please, again, all of these are available in English online, issued by Islamic Republic of Iran and no one else. All these information are available if you'd like to confirm what I'm telling you here. So in Quran, it says you can marry an orphan girl. In Hadith, Aisha confirmed the meaning. Civil Code of Islamic Republic of Iran says if you have the male guardian's approval, then you can marry her, the orphan girl. I would say in reality, not only they're not radical, not only they didn't make extreme laws, they actually helped it a little bit. Because in Quran it says just marry the girl. Civil Code of Iran says at least ask the male guardian to do it. So maybe somehow, somewhere the father would kick in and the male guardian wouldn't give her away. So me becoming a child bride had everything to do with the fact that my father was crazy and there was a psycho man who was willing to purchase me. But if that happened here in America, having that father, he would be in prison and I would be saved. Somehow, magically, if he got away with it, and the man managed to buy me, they would both go to prison and I still would be saved. So on top of the possibility of we have crazy people everywhere, we have sick people everywhere. But when the toolbox is there, when the law of the land, being Sharia, which is supposedly a religion, gives them a free pass to do it, we got a problem. And the problem isn't the crazy father. The problem is the existence of Islamic law system that approves it. Now let's go to where the judge told me my testimony is half of the guy, so I ended up being lashed 25 times. Why did he say that? Quran chapter 4, verse 11 says, your girl deserves half of your boy. She can have half of whatever your boy has. Rights, words, testimony, money, anything. So a woman is considered half of a man because chapter 4, verse 11 says so. Why did the judge look at me and say, maybe you should obey your husband so he doesn't have to beat you? Because chapter 4, verse 34 says, men are in charge of women. If you think, just think, your wife is going to disobey you, warn her, then separate your bed, then beat her until she obeys you again. That's why the judge told me that, because Quran said it. And I haven't even brought any other Islamic teaching. Let's just stay with Quran by itself. And again, everything I'm saying here comes from the sugar-coated translations. Everything that happened to me had everything to do with Islam. Did I at some point blame my father? Yes. Did I blame my so-called husband? Yes. Did I blame the judge and the family and friends and the entire country? Yes. But the more I studied, and the more I studied, I realized there's just one thing to blame, and that is Islam by itself. Problems Islam. Why? The Holy Book of Islam, Quran, contains 51%, not 48, 47, more than half, which makes the majority of the book, to tell Muslims how to deal with non-Muslims. Now, how do they deal with non-Muslims? If they're not big enough in numbers, they give the non-Muslim the opportunity to become a second-class citizen, pay the protection fee, and stay alive. The protection fee is 50% of your income, on top of your regular taxes. Then when they grow enough in numbers, the choice changes. Convert or die. 51% of Quran. Then, in Quran, as I gave you the verse, now if you want to confirm that verse, you can also go to chapter 65, called Divorce. That chapter is about how you divorce your wife, which is a pretty simple process. A Muslim man wants to divorce his wife. All he needs to do is repeat 3 times in Arabic, I'll divorce you, I'll divorce you, I'll divorce you, and divorce is done. But he needs to keep the wife for a period of time called Udda, just in case if he should change his mind and would like to take her back. In Quran, chapter 65 says, count 3 periods of hers. But if your wife has not reached puberty, mark 90 days on your calendar. I'm pretty sure in order to divorce a child, you should have married her first. So that's your other proof that child bride is okay in Quran. Now again, if you read the Quran, any verse that refers to a girl, little girl being a bride, there is no limit on age. It doesn't say what age. However, every Islamic country, every Islamic society goes by age 9. Reason for that. There are 91 verses in Quran that tells Muslim people that Muhammad is the perfect example of a man, and you shall follow his footsteps. And the most famous one is chapter 33, verse 21. So 90 times in Quran, Allah says Muhammad is a perfect example of a man, and you should follow him. Again, what did Muhammad do? Married Aisha at age 6, consummated marriage at... That's why age 9 is in Islam the age of marriage for girls. That's why at 9 I was called a woman. So were the rest of the country 9-year-olds. What else did Muhammad do? He killed 800 Jews in one night. And he called all Christians non-believers. Now, Muhammad didn't do that on his own. He didn't do it because he had a problem with Christians. No. He did it because chapter 4, verse 171 told him to do that. I will read it quickly if you don't mind. Again, chapter 4, verse 171 says, O people of the scripture, do not commit excess in your religion or say about Allah except the truth. The Messiah, Jesus, the son of Mary, was but a messenger of Allah, and his word which he directed to Mary, and a soul created at a command from him. So believe in Allah and his messenger, and do not say 3. Is that Christianity? Was Jesus just a messenger of Allah? Was Jesus just son of Mary? Therefore, Muhammad could not take Christians as believers because Allah said, if you believe in Allah, you will believe in Jesus as just a messenger. So every time in the Quran, there's a mention of disbelievers. Christians are included that word. Every time they will tell you, oh no, we believe in Christianity, the tricky question right after is, oh really? Tell me about the Jesus you believe in. And they will tell you, oh, Jesus was just a prophet. And as soon as you disagree with them, you become the infidel. And what is the punishment for being an infidel? Slay them wherever you find them. Now it comes to the argument where we hear a lot from a lot of leaders to say we have to be friends with them, and we have to love them, and we have to open doors and let them in. Okay. How do you become friends with someone who is not allowed by words of his God to take you as a friend? Because chapter 5, verse 51 says, O you who have believed, do not take Christians and Jews as your friends, as they are Allah's enemy. How do we become their friends? It's not that Muhammad told them not to take us as friends. They're supposedly God ordered them not to take us as friends because we are the enemy of their God. There are over 181 verses in Quran, 181, that explains what are allowed to be done to non-Muslims. And every single one is worse than the other one. Non-Muslim man should be slaved, killed, tortured, and non-Muslim women are supposed to be taken as sex slaves. And if you read the history of Islam, you'll see it. Islam was hijacked. Okay, at what point was it hijacked? Unless Muhammad himself hijacked Islam. Because in history of Islam, you'll see as soon as Muhammad moved to Medina, as when the whole jihad and killing and converting started, so did the verses of Quran that started coming to him. ISIS is radical. Okay. What is ISIS saying on their videos? We will behead you in the name of Allah, right? Well, 181 verses in Quran says in the name of Allah behead them. Why are we looking at them as radicals? They're not radicals. They're devoted Muslims. In Quran itself, chapter 3, verse 7 says, and we gave you Muhammad and the book of Quran, with verses clear in meaning, and such verses not clear in meaning for you to translate to your benefit. And Allah is only knowing of the true meaning of those verses. And somehow magically we are all supposed to believe their translation. Even though in Quran Allah says, I'm leaving those translations kind of open so you can twist them to your benefit. Or, fair question is, okay, if no one except Allah knows the meaning behind these verses, then in reality, nobody knows the true Islam. So we should all stop it until somebody figures it out. Then they're more than welcome to come back and reintroduce it to human society. At the moment, apparently Allah is the only one who knows what a verse means. So everybody's getting it wrong. And somehow magically everyone who's getting it wrong end up killing non-Muslims. They all get it wrong in a very common way. Now let's talk about Muslim community inside America. Did you hear about the recent clinic that was shut down because the doctor was performing female genital mutilation? I'm pretty sure it was Minnesota. So female genital mutilation is already happening. I'm sure you've heard of all the honor killings going on, right? Which, by the way, you haven't heard of all, because if you look it up, you'll see that in average, every year, 2,400 honor killings are taking place in America. But the only reason we don't know about all of them is because they are going on being reported as just a normal murder. They're not labeling it. They're not calling it honor killing because that would be offensive to the Muslim community. Child bride is taking place in America. You just don't know about it because Sharia is superior to all law of land. In order to be married under Islam, all you need is an imam and a mosque, and a bride, and a groom. So they are doing it, they just don't need to register it with our system. So we don't know what's happening. So Islam is right here. It is right here. Now, just keep in mind, as Dr. Bill Warner always says, Islam makes Muslims. Muslims don't make Islam. So, instead of focusing so much on dealing or fighting or fixing Muslims, we're going to shift our focus to Islam. Islam is the problem. Now, how do we fix that problem? Sharia was actually banned in America at some point, because Sharia isn't the religious part. Sharia is the legal system of Islam. Sharia means Islamic laws. In America, there cannot be a foreign law. There's only one law in America. So Sharia goes against our Constitution. They banned it before. We can do it again. Technically, we don't even need to redo it. We just need to bring that bill back up. You ban Sharia, Islam will fall apart because Islam cannot exist without Sharia. Because this is how much of a religion is involved with Islam. The rest is an ideology, it's the control system. You take away the system, there is no Islam left. Now, how do we do that? We get enough people educated. You start by yourself. Because if you don't know your enemy, you can't fight your enemy. What is the enemy? Islam. So you get educated on the subject of Islam. Start by reading Quran. You can't read the whole thing, I understand. Make sure to read chapter 4, 5, and 9. By the time you're done with those 3 chapters, you're good to go. You know all you need to know to understand why Islam should not be in this country. In my point of view, it shouldn't exist at all. But at least we're now in this country. When you're educated enough, then you get involved, meaning you get out there and you start educating those who are not educated. And then when we have enough educated Americans, then we take action. Because we, the people, have the power in this country to ban Sharia. We just need enough people who know what we're doing, have the education on the subject, then take the action and make it illegal. And the problem will solve itself. Why do we have to do that? I'm not asking you to do it for me. I'm not even asking for you to do it for yourself. You got to do it for your daughters and granddaughters because they will pay the price. When the revolution in Iran happened, I wasn't even born yet, but I paid the price. I told my grandmother, why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you even try to stop it? She said, well, we were at home. We kept thinking, they're a bunch of angry kids. They're going to go home. They're going to get tired. Until they didn't get tired. Until we realized it's too late. They took over the country. And I know it's hard to imagine it will happen here. I hear that all the time. It's not going to happen. Not on my watch. Not in this country. Iran has over 2,700 years of history. Trust me, if it happened there, it can happen here. if we keep denying the existence of it, if we keep turning a blind eye and thinking if we don't see it so it's not happening, it will end up happening. And as I said, your daughters and your granddaughters are going to pay the price. And I just gave you a glimpse of what a little girl can face under Sharia. And I gave you the evidence from Quran itself that it had nothing to do with radical leaders of my country or a crazy father. It had everything to do with the teaching of Islam. And here's another reason to do it. I personally do it for this reason. I got a second chance at life and freedom because of America. She saved me. She has saved millions. It's time for us to save her because she is very well worth saving. And if we save her, then she can keep saving people like me over and over and over again. With that being said, thank you so much. God bless you and God bless America. Is that where we take questions? Okay. Yes,
I have a question. I heard that in Islam there's a principle where they're allowed to lie to people who aren't Muslim. Is that it? Taqiyya? Is that how you pronounce that?
Yes, taqiyya.
Can you explain how that works?
Of course. But before I explain that, if you don't mind me quickly saying something, I actually did a full video on this, but I tried to quickly go over it. You just said it's called taqiyya. Taqiyya in Arabic, translated to English, means deceive. If you think for a second, how many Arabic words do you know right now? 5, 6, 8, 10? At the beginning of my speech, I said, Allah only speaks one language, and that's Arabic. In Islam, knowing Arabic is mandatory. Constitution of Islamic Republic of Iran, Article 2 says, language of the country is Farsi. However, because Islam and Islamic teachings are Arabic, second mandatory language taught at country is Arabic. Without you even knowing so, they're making you learn their language. They're making you use their terms. There is a translation for every single Arabic word. From jihad to jihadis to taqiyya to halal, all of those try to use the English version. But as far as taqiyya, I just gave you the example of chapter 3, verse 7. That's right there, taqiyya. Yes, Muslims are allowed to lie under 3 circumstances. 1, their life is in danger, and if they admit they're Muslim, they will be killed. They are allowed to even go as far as saying, I'm not a Muslim. If their Muslim brother's life, not the sister, Muslim brother's life is in danger, they're allowed to lie. And the third reason is, if they are helping furthering the agenda of Islamization, they are allowed to lie about anything in Islam. But here's where you can catch them. They are never allowed to disrespect Muhammad or deny Allah. They can lie about everything else, including the meanings of verses in Quran or how the rules and regulation works, to all the way telling you, I don't follow Sharia. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Annie, I have a series of questions. I don't want you to feel like offended or anything, but do you believe the devil exists? Satan exists?
Of course I do.
Okay, is there a chance that the Allah that they're praying to, that Muhammad had conversations from, was talking to Satan and not the same God as the Christian God, the concept of God that we have?
Muhammad was definitely not talking to our God. No. But the Allah, from knowing so much about Muhammad and Quran and verses of Quran, I think Allah was an imaginary friend of Muhammad. My reason for that is, if you read the Quran, and if you have it in the proper order that it was revealed to Muhammad, you'll see that there are 2 situations. It's either Allah is completely bipolar because he can't make up his mind, or Muhammad kept changing the words of Allah to fit the narrative to his benefit. One day Christians were fine, then they're not fine, and then they become kafirs or non-believers. Same thing with Jews, and one day that adultery punishment should be 100 lashes, another day should be stoning. So to my understanding, it just doesn't fit there. Muhammad made up this law. And considering not a single verse was ever revealed to him, why someone else around? He definitely made him up.
Yeah, it's like Usama Dakdak said that 36% of the Quran is completely incomprehensible because of those deviations that you just pointed out. And to me, that's justification right there, where he's not talking to the same God.
Oh, absolutely, he's not.
And the other thing is that there's a lot of names for God, right? The Jews have a lot of different names. Allah to my knowledge, Allah is not written in the Old Testament. And to me, that's another justification that this is a made-up character that is about death.
Yes.
You know, and from my understanding, with Satan, Lucifer falling from heaven, falling here as a spirit, he is the prince or the god of this world. And it's our job to find our way back to the Father in heaven. And this is why we see the decay, right? The men's behaviors, both in Christians and whatever religion, you know, is because we have to fight hard to get back to the presence of our Father. But I'm curious to hear from you, what can we do? Because when you look at the books that these, you know, sophisticated Muslim people are writing, they're using the strategies of deception, blending in and wrapping it with truth. The only book that I've read, the Quran, and to be honest with you, I have a hard time just having one in my house. I don't know why, but the only book that I can have is Usama Dakdak's, okay? I don't know if you know this, but he sent out 4,500 PDF versions of his book across the United States to pretty much every government official who had some authority. He didn't get one response back,
Yes.
right? But I feel like the reason is because it's the truth. What he says in there and how his interpretation is helps me understand chapters 4 and 6 and 9 and, you know, those key things, right? But what are your thoughts about that particular version of the Quran?
You mean Usama's version?
Usama's,
It is absolutely properly translated.
okay.
The only reason I don't normally suggest that for someone who has never read the Quran is that what Usama did is he tried not to touch it at all and just literally translate it. Now, if you read the Quran in Arabic, if you could read Arabic and you would read it, you would kind of feel like probably an 8 or 9-year-old person wrote it. It is in broken grammar. So taking it from that broken grammar and not touching it kind of put it into a broken grammar of English in translation. So it makes it even harder to understand. You get the key words, but the whole thing, the whole story is just not lining up. So that's why I normally suggest people read a more sugar-coated, smooth English version, then go and compare notes with Usama's version. Because as I said, trust me, doesn't matter how sugar-coated it is,
Right.
as I read one for you, I mean, it's still saying have 4 wives.
Yeah.
It will still say your daughter's worth half of your son. Those are things, the basics are not changing. You will still get the message, you will still understand how inhuman this book is. So I normally suggest my suggestion is Sahih International, which is basically the most simplest, proper English there is. And the ones I was reading to you all come from Sahih International. That's a version I suggest.
What version was it?
Sahih, S-A-H-I-H, International. Sahih International. That's the one that I suggest because it's very easy to understand the meaning. Again, the reason Quran is hard to read is because it wasn't written in proper Arabic. I mean, the person who wrote it barely could speak or write or read. And because they didn't want to touch it, they didn't fix it. So even in Arabic, when you read it, it kind of just doesn't make sense. It's very broken.
So what are you doing as far as approaching individuals of influence and power in government to impact them, to get them to understand this? Is that a bad question? Or?
No, not at all. I'm just thinking, I wish I had an easy answer to that question.
Yeah.
What am I doing? I'm trying.
Yeah, I know you're trying. I'm not
But
suggesting.
honestly, I mean, for about 8 years, there was not even a chance of trying because all doors were just sealed.
Okay.
And recently, I'm trying, but again, there is so much of a mess to clean up that this mess is at the very bottom of the list. So I have been reaching out to locals. Basically, that's where I want to start, instead of going all the way to the, bigger, powerful people. I'm starting with, local level. And I haven't had much luck yet. But I do know, some people are kind of sort of starting to at least call it what it is. Through just, emailing my videos to them, or if I have a piece that I've written, I send it out to them. That's basically where I'm going with it at the moment.
Okay.
But I understand how important it is for us to get those in the government to do something about it, but I still believe we, the people, is the key to this problem. So I'm focusing more on these kind of meetings where I can talk to my fellow Americans and tell them what's going on.
May I ask, where, without telling what you don't want to tell, where do you live and how do you get your message out?
Well, I pretty much move around. I don't have a specific location, thanks to 10 fatwas on me.
Okay.
And how do I get my message out? Anyone who invites me, I show up.
Do you have a Facebook or anything?
I have a Facebook, I have a website, liveuptofreedom.com. Most of my information is in there.
Okay.
And basically, honestly, if you Google my name, everything will come right up.
Okay.
But interesting enough, if you Google my name, the first result is the press release CARE put out against me.
Okay. So that's how we can find out more about you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, sir?
What do you think is happening in the mosque in St. Cloud? In any mosque, per se?
I was about to say any mosque. Well, basically, I always say every time a mosque goes up, that area has been conquered. And that is true. And let me tell you why an area is conquered. When there are enough Muslims in an area, then they need to have their own law and system, which is Sharia. So they need to build their Sharia court. What is a Sharia court? When a country is an Islamic, a Sharia court is a mosque. So every time they build a mosque, that means there are enough Muslims there to follow their own laws and not the country's law. So what does happen in every mosque, now do they do prayers there sometimes? Yes, but not a single verse in Quran says you have to go to a mosque and do the prayer. Actually, there are verses in Quran where it says doing your prayer alone by yourself is better than in groups. So that's not part of need for mosque. Now, they need an imam in a mosque, most of the time for converts, because if you want to convert, you have to go to an imam. I mean, you can say the shahada in front of another Muslim and it's fine, but then you have to go to an imam for him to guide you through the path. Secondly, the only person who can locally call out a jihad is an imam, and a random Muslim doesn't have the right to call out a jihad. An imam needs to issue the jihad. And also, all the money, all the taxes, zakat, khams, all of that needs to be gathered from the local Islamic businesses or Muslim people goes through mosque, and from there the imam will decide how much of it will be supporting Islamic war, also known as jihad, and how much of it is going to support the mosque. So these are what's majorly happening in mosques. Yes,
You also brought up last night, when a Muslim prays, which is 5 times a day, they are praying anti-Christian or Jews multiple times during each one of those. So it's not like 5, it's like 17 times a day they're praying.
Depending on Sunni or Shia, but yes, 17 is the Shia side, since I was raised. 17, okay, they have 5 prayers a day, but total of the terms they do the prayer is 17. And during each one, they will do the first surah or chapter of the Quran, where verse 6 and 7 says, Allah, guide us to the right path and not the path of people who angered you and deserve your curse. Referring to Christians and Jews. Yes, they do say that 17 times a day.
I was told that the group in St. Cloud are primarily Sunni, and they practice differently than the Shia.
I would believe, yes, they would be mainly Sunnis. And the reason is, in general, the only country that is 100% Shia is Islamic Republic of Iran. The rest are Sunni, majority. And as far as practicing differently, no. Sunni or Shia or Wahhabi, they all believe in the same Allah, same Quran, same Muhammad. From there on, some things are different. For example, Shia stand differently, do the prayer, than Sunnis stand differently. The number of prayers is different. Some of the punishments are different. But the umbrella, the general Islamic ruling, it's completely the same. As I said, they read the same Quran, believe in the same Allah and Muhammad. That part is completely the same between all of them. There is no other different, no.
Yeah, I love what you said about the focus has to be the dismantling of Islam.
Yes,
Right?
because here's the thing, I actually have had, and I will share this with you because I've been sharing it with everyone, I was able to talk very easily without preaching anything. I have had success to have 3 Muslims leave Islam and convert. And here's how I do it. I don't go to them and preach love. I don't go to them introducing Jesus to them. No. I'll go to them, I hand them a Quran, and I ask them to read their own Quran. By the time they're done, they're done.
Good for you.
Because you see, here's the thing. When do you see the light? When you're in complete darkness. The only way to get them to reach that darkness is to have them read their own book. Over 75% of Muslims never read the entire Quran. They just don't. They know the pieces that were taught to them or preached to them by their imams, or what they use for their prayer. Have them read the Quran, and I promise you, you'll save them.
Simple.
So there's an issue about that, right? Because, for instance, the church that I go to, we have missionaries all over the world. Our missionaries will not go into those areas, and in fact, in St. Cloud, they won't go into those areas and preach. Obviously, they're not using the Quran, but the reason they won't go in there is because of the honor killing or the potential death or the harm that could come to that individual. So our church has basically given up focusing on those areas, which I think is not right. Right? That's why I'm sitting here today. I want to try to figure out a way to contribute to help these people that are in the darkness. But my fear is that true? I mean, if they can rape, if they can rape people that are Muslim, they can sure as kill them, And so it's happening here in St. Cloud, right? It's got to be.
Well, as I said, here's the thing. There are good and bad everywhere. All right? Rape happens everywhere.
Right.
But how it's dealt with or how it's taught and how it comes to happen is the issue. And that's why I go back to Islam is the problem. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, we do have rapists out there, but literally the only rapist who would rape and then stand with a straight face and say, I did it because I had the right to do it because I'm a Muslim and you're not, comes from Islam.
Yeah.
So, again, it goes back to, instead of, at the moment, we can't focus on saving Muslims. We are, but the focus is by getting rid of Islam. Take away Islam, because at the end of the day, the number 1 victims of Islam are Muslims themselves. They are the ones who are being oppressed and tortured daily. The very first thing under Islam that happens is they take away your soul. They teach you to be heartless, to be hateful. And again, I'm not saying that because I had a couple of bad experiences. No, I say that because I read the Quran over 40 times. So, the only way we help them stop the oppression and suffering of them is to get rid of what's causing it. So again, we just need to focus on stopping Islam. And then, no, if there are people who still want to be a Muslim and still be oppressed, then basically because it's illegal to be in our country, then we wish them luck, we will pray for them, and we send them back to their countries to continue being oppressed. But not here, not in this land. Just doesn't work. Yes, ma'am.
There seems to be an intense strategy to shame Christians who are questioning the mass importation of Muslims who are bringing in the Islamic culture. Now, I'm concerned, do you think either we have a great deal of, a number of men in community positions in politics that have a propensity to pedophilia themselves, and they're bringing it in, or as Americans, we have been so conditioned and indoctrinated to be tolerant, submissive, welcoming, to the point where it's going to be suicidal, like it is being in Europe. No. Do you think it's that there are certain men in leadership who have a propensity towards the perversions in the culture, or that they're just so submissive that they're willing to try so hard to accommodate Islam, they'll submit to it and help topple everything we have here in the process?
Well, I think there's a third option. The third option is the unholy alliance between the left and Islam. For years, the left has had one common goal: burn down America to ashes, and let's build our utopia, which I call it a delusional utopia, on the ashes. If you go that way, you will realize why they are so okay with bringing all these disasters, culture, and ideology into our country. How do we get rid of American values? We bring in values that goes against it. So that's why they're doing it. They don't even think as far as, okay, when it's all done and conquered by Islam, what is going to happen to them? They don't bother to look that far. They don't realize that Islam is not going to say, hey, because you were with us on burning down America, I'm going to give you a free pass. No, that doesn't happen.
It seems like there's such a sense of pride in...
And I'm sorry to interrupt. And another part, when you say, shaming Christians, that part we are at fault. Because we just need to remember, or at least take the step to go back to where it all started. We need to realize, we need to remember, we need to go back to our roots. Instead of being shamed, we need to stand strong, chin up, and as a proud Christian say, I am just defending what's mine. But we don't want to do that. Exact opposite of that side is our side now. Oh, I have to be a nice Christian. Well, absolutely. Go ahead and love people, but don't bow to evil. Islam is the evil. We will love the people, but we will fight the evil. That's the part that it's getting a little confusing in the Christian community. We shouldn't be ashamed. I'm not. I am proud to have the opportunity and the strength to stand here and tell my story. And it has nothing to do with me wanting them in this country or not. It has everything to do with me loving my home.
What percent of the women in your country believe like you do, and the men believe like you do, that they should make a change? They should make a difference?
You mean America?
No, I'm sorry, in your...
Hey, that is my country.
You have dual citizenship, right? You're Muslim. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, so you mean my motherland?
So in Iran,
You're welcome.
how many people believe like you do, the women, and how many...
I would say out of close to 80 million population we have in Iran, pretty much 60 to 62 million are just right here with me.
Wow. Out of how many? I'm sorry, what was the total?
80 million, about 60 to 62 million is ready to go free.
So, is it fair to say then, like, the information coming out of Medina and Mecca is, that 2% are controlling the whole direction of this Islam?
Yes. And if you notice, the very first thing I told you was we had a mirror image of the American Constitution minus the Second Amendment.
Second Amendment, the guns.
That's one of the ways they're controlling the people.
And so do you think that actually led to their demise because of having the openness to accepting other religions and allowing them to pray and, do the things that they wanted to do?
No, here's when things got really bad in Iran was when Shah of Iran made a mistake of allowing a imam to represent the Muslim community inside the government. As soon as they started coming to the government is when they spread. Yes. Yes, sir.
Question. It just seems such irony to me how women are allowed to be treated in Islam, that so many of the feminists in the United States, even those that aren't feminists, as a Christian, I would say, this is abominable. Why don't they know that the rights of women are being, undercut in this and saying this is wrong?
They do know. If you're referring to the feminist movement in America, they do know how it works under Sharia in Islamic countries. I actually said this before. Are you all familiar with Linda Sarsour? The co-chair, she was one of the founders of the movement, right? The Women's March movement. I wrote her a letter, and I sent it, old-fashioned from faxing and emailing and mailing and all that. And I said, here's the thing. I will personally purchase a one-way ticket for you to Islamic country of your choice. I want you to go there and fight for women's rights. If you make your way back to America in one piece, I will gladly join your woman march in America. She knows, everyone who's following her, they know what they know what it means to be oppressed under Islamic Sharia. But again, they don't care for women's rights. It's the mask they're hiding behind. What they care for is more corruption and more chaos in this country. That's all they're doing, more division. Because in reality, you go talk to any of them. I did. Said, what is the right? Exactly that a specific right that you're lacking and you're looking for. None of them can give you an answer. Because it doesn't exist. There is no lack of women's right in this country. It is as equal as it gets. As a woman, I have, trust me, I've read all the laws. I know I have just as much rights as a man in this country. Now, if somebody chooses not to use it, it's their problem. Yes, sir?
They know it. That's that merger of the left with Islam.
Exactly.
And they use each other to take America down.
No, they know exactly what it means to be under Sharia. Yes, ma'am?
Question. In St. Cloud, in our junior high and high school, the public school district allows the Muslim children time to say their prayers during the school day.
Yes.
So when you were talking about prayers before, if they're saying the same prayers, are they praying against the Christians and the Jews?
Yes.
Their fellow classmates?
Yes.
And they're led to pray during the school day?
Yes. Yes, they're standing in that prayer room during that time and asking Allah to guide them to the right path and not the path of Christians and Jews. Yes, that is what they're doing.
When the kids have their sex education in the grade schools and stuff, is any of that getting back home to them? Is it still happening, here in America, as bad as it was for you over in Iran?
I'm so sorry, would you repeat that for me? When they're getting what?
The sex education that the kids get in the local schools, the young girls, are they being dominated here as bad as they would have been over in Iran?
To be honest, I wouldn't know that. Because first of all, in Iran, there is no such education. There are no classes like that.
Well, I know that they do here.
I know, but that's why I'm like, I can't, because in Islamic countries, there is no such classes. They don't exist. And in a way, as I said, when by age 9 you're an adult and ready to get married, they pretty much throw you out there. There is no educating you on the subject.
So the girls here probably get one idea when they're in their classes with their teachers, and then they go home and they hear something else from their parents.
Pretty much. But no, it's very much with the Friday classes and at-home schooling and teaching the Islamic aspect, they make sure it doesn't get out of control. They make sure of that.
On a business level, we live on the east side, and there's a couple of storefronts. They always have open on their signs. What happens when they do their prayers? Because I know I tried to train people, and having to deal with this prayer time all the time, they just stopped and quit. So their store stays open, and nobody comes in because only the Muslims go there? Is that the situation? Everybody prays at the same time?
Are you talking about in this country or Islamic countries?
Here in town, on the east side.
Well, here's the thing. In general, because the punishment for stealing anything is to lose your right arm and left leg, actually, in any Islamic country you go to, when it's prayer time, nobody locks any doors. They just leave the business and go do the prayer, because no one would risk losing an arm and a leg to go steal a candy or a cookie. And that became part of how it is. They basically drop what they have. They don't lock doors or stores or shut it down. They go do the prayer and then come back and just pick up a business. It's the same thing in Islamic countries. You don't see them locked down. They just go and then come back to business. Yes. Yes, sir?
And is there any help for other girls to save them and bring them home? Is anyone doing anything?
Well, I'm trying to do something, yes. My organization does rescue cases. In last 11 years, we managed to rescue 18 people. That includes child bride, women who were oppressed, political prisoners who were in prison because they either stood up and spoke against Islam or they were Christians. But unfortunately, there is no hope to do it in a big number for two reasons. One, the immigration system right now is just not back to normal. So the legit, real immigrants are held back in Turkey and secondary countries as the doors are open for other ones to just come in. And the second reason for it, it's become more and more expensive to do operation like that. And also, we have missionaries in the Middle East, but because they're Christian, what happens is that these women and girls are scared to go to them because they could be killed for working or requesting help from Christians. And unfortunately, a lot of missionaries actually don't have the proper protection system. So we have had cases when a Muslim woman went to a Christian missionary in the Middle East requesting for help, and her name got out there, and she was killed pretty much. If we can somehow get President Trump to put our immigration back to where it was before Obama, then yes, there's definitely more hope for them. Any other questions? Yes,
How
sir.
are your feelings towards your parents right now?
I'm sorry?
How are your feelings towards your parents right now?
As of this moment I'm standing here, or in general,
In general, maybe.
Oh.
As you stand there. I would hate it myself.
No. As I said, at some point I did blame them. With my mother, she had her own share of suffering under Sharia. So, but my father, I did definitely blame him. At some point, I did have a bit of hatred toward him. But as I said, as I started, I guess getting older or aging, I realized Islam is to be blamed or hated. And yes, I do hate Islam. I don't hate Muslims. So I guess I switched that feeling toward the actual enemy being Islam. And then pretty much when I was saved myself, I learned to forgive them for what they've done to me.
Amen.
You
still have contact with your
a
family?
parent could not protect you from that.
It's a complicated brainwash
They have
system.
normal.
No, it's a very complicated brainwash system.
Yeah.
It is.
So are your parents still over there?
Father passed away, and I don't really have any connection, or I'm not in touch with any other family members. I've been pretty much disowned by most of them. And rest of them, in order to keep them safe and protected, we just don't stay in touch. Yes, sir?
Where were you educated, in the U.S. or over there?
No, when I was in Iran at a certain age, my father figured I'm getting way too smart for him, so he just didn't let me go back to school. And since I moved to America, I haven't really had the chance to really go to school and be educated. So I guess to answer your question, I'm not really educated. I'm very well educated in Islam, but generally I'm not really educated. Yes, ma'am?
What would be the best way, how would you recommend if you're speaking to a leader or an official who is just dead set that it is our duty to welcome the refugees and accommodate them, and they won't do any research on the true religious, social, political aspects? They only see it as a religion. If they only see
Even as a religion, if they see it only as a religion, just go ahead and give them chapter 5, verse 51. Oh, you who have believed, do not take Christians and Jews as your friends, that they are Allah's enemy. Would they want to fight it by religion? Okay, I'm pretty sure a huge part of a religion is the holy book of the religion, right? Here it is, chapter 5, verse 51. Just give them that. Or the entire chapter 5 would help too. Perfect. Yes, sir.
You made a comment a couple of times about Obama. How much do you think that he affected the situation that we're finding ourselves in today as far as the influx of Islam?
Well, he completely finished his part. He did his part. He was put in place to commit what's known as political jihad. Let me quickly go over this. There are 4 different types of jihad in Islam. There is jihad as war, where you kill and terrorize people. There is financial jihad, which is a halal system. So you force halal, and a percentage of that goes to support the war against non-believers. There is political jihad. Hussein Obama gets in power and politically start dividing the country and replacing everything that needs to be replaced. And then there's civilization jihad, like CARE. CARE is basically behind all the civilization jihad. So he basically finished what he started. His job was to literally divide this country, because in Islam it says divide and conquer. So his job was to divide, and he did a very good job on that.
He certainly did. And how would we counter the logical argument, the logical American argument, that a percentage of a population, we'll say, would be entitled to be represented properly? So in other words, since I'm pretty active politically too, and I can see the argument coming up, and I need to know how to, a good way to be able to counter that, because if say St. Cloud is 10% Muslim, you would think that they would have, 1 seat on the city council, for instance. But I see that as the camel's nose under the tent. And pretty
Well,
soon
here's
that
how you
whole
counter
camel's
that.
in there.
Again, you take it back to our Constitution. There can be a foreign law involved in this country, correct?
What you're saying about Sharia, but what about just a person running for a position on our existing city council?
Exactly. What does he practice? That person, what does he practice?
Well, so there's Sharia and Islam.
There you go. Someone who is following the foreign law cannot represent our laws.
But I think the argument would be that they're not bringing Sharia in with them. They are wanting to be part of our political system. And that would be part of being an
Okay,
American.
what's the proof on that? Because I can prove they are bringing Sharia. Can they counter my proof?
That's what I'm asking, is what proof can we have?
Oh, between Quran, Hadith, Sunnah, and reliance of the traveler, you have hundreds and hundreds of pages that a person who will stand up representing himself as a Muslim has no choice but to obey Sharia.
no choice but to obey Sharia.
In order to represent yourself, especially a man, to represent yourself as a practicing Muslim, especially in a foreign land, you have to follow Sharia. There is no way around it.
What chapter and verse is that?
I have to bring my Quran, but it's mentioned on chapter 9,
Okay.
chapter 3,
Okay.
I believe chapter 4, verses 168 or 158. They should be there. Also on Reliance of the Traveler, if you look at the chapter of devotion, in there it also mentions. So these are...
It's not easier if we have something written that says, okay, this is what it
Here's
says.
your best bet. Go on jihadwatch.org,
Okay.
Robert Spencer.
Yeah.
Search the word, not obligation. Drawing a blank here for you. I'm sorry?
Covenant?
No. It's, it means when you are, it's mandatory for you to do something. No, it's not. Requirements of devotion to Islam.
Okay.
He has a long page with all the verses, hadith, even sunnah in there. Robert Spencer put a huge article with all the verse numbers. Go to Jihad Watch and you'll find it there. Absolutely. If you all allow me, I will say good night to you all. Thank you so much and stay safe. And if you would, please keep me in your prayers. Thank you.
Thank you.